So today I'm going to do a sort of tutorial, an introduction to programming concepts, like the basic syntax of and well, basic concepts that you need for writing a program, um, or at least reading a program and kind of knowing what's going on in it, reading the code. So this is like some what's the word? Precursor. It's like background for some other stuff that I want to talk about, like how you go about actually writing a program. Like you have something that you want to do. Like how do you break that down? Break down the problem and sort of come up with the stuff that you need to actually write it. But first, like you need to know the basics, or at least that's the direction, like the order that I learned things. I sort of learned, and so I'm gonna teach those in those direction in that order rather. Right. So what we're using today, I'm using Python because that's what I use most of the time. There are plenty of languages out there, plenty of other tutorials. So if you don't like this one, you know, if you're not don't feel like it's teaching you, feel like please search out other better ones, or ones that are more like aligned with uh, what you're hoping to do. But what we're going to do today is build a chatbot that's going to like sort of carry on a very rudimentary conversation with us in the command line. So like what the windows I've got open right now here are Cygwin and Notepad++. So Cygwin is basically, it gives you a sort of Linux interface for Windows. But you don't really need that for what we're going to do today. You can do you can use like a command prompt window in Windows. And actually, let me switch to the other window. So I'm going to type these out. There we go. Okay, and this is Notepad++, which is a text editor. And you don't need to use this specific text editor. All it's for is editing the plain text files that code is written in. And you could use this one. You could use Atom, which is what I use most of the time. Okay, so this is Notepad++. You could just use regular Notepad. Atom, like Notepad++, works just for Windows. So if you're on some other system, or you want to use something that works on any, like Linux, Windows, or Mac, Atom would be one to use. A lot of people are using VS Code. A very popular one. It's sort of superseding Atom these days. Let me. Got very short lines because I'm trying to make sure the text is big enough for whatever kind of screen you're using. Or just Notepad. I mean, so something like Notepad++ or Atom, etc. They give you a little more well, you'll see it in a little bit, but they give you like syntax highlighting and help with your like your indentation levels, and so that's why like programmers don't use just plain Notepad. Usually we use something like this, Notepad++. Um, so right, and command line. Sigwin. So yes, which I mentioned is a Linux, sort of gives you Linux utilities in Windows, which we don't really need for this tutorial. So we could use cmd. Like you just in Windows you go to the like search bar and type in cmd, and it, as long as somebody doesn't have your computer locked down, um, like if I don't know, it depends if it's like a work computer or something. Like sometimes they block that kind of thing, but it'll open a command prompt. Terminal app, on Mac. On Linux, like it's probably called the same thing. On Mac, I guess you'll probably need to install like developer tools to get to the terminal, because it doesn't like, which I mean it's like part of, like I think it's free if you have a Mac. It's developer tools, but you have to deliberately like install it. So you can just search how to install developer tools or something on Mac. And for the programming language, we're going to use Python 3.4. And that's just because that's what's currently installed on this computer. I didn't feel like uh, like troubleshooting why I'm not like seeing newer stuff show up here on this computer, but any version of Python 3.4 or greater, uh, like you should probably install like the newest one. I think 3.9 is out, and whatever the latest stable version of Python is. So we don't need like the latest features in Python for this tutorial. And in fact, I might need to, well, I sort of wrote this out as a test program, but so I'd know what I was gonna be coding for you, and so I might need to change one or two things to make sure that it works in 3.4. Like, because we don't really need fancy formatting for this program, but we'll get into that. All right. So what we're gonna do, in the command line, well, first of all, you're gonna want to create a directory where we're gonna put this program, and I've already got that created, I believe. So, but if you don't, you're gonna create a directory, chatbot, the bot, but I've already got it, so cd to change directory to chatbot. Right, and so we're going to create a new file, in that directory. So, and then using our editor and save it as, let's see, chat.py. So .py is the extension for Python files run by the Python interpreter. Okay, and did I just have the, I might have had the command line window or closed or covered. So let me, so cd chatbot or make dir, so you can see here that I'm in the chatbot directory. Make dir chatbot if it doesn't already exist, but so make dir and change to the, that's just so we have a place to put, I mean there's only going to be one file in this tutorial, but yeah. So let me switch windows again. Alright, so we're going to start, most program, like intro to programming tutorials, start with just one statement, and that's going to be a print. We're going to need parentheses because we're calling the print function, and we'll talk about what functions are. And then we're going to need open and close quotes, and it's going to say hello world. Alright, so I'm going to save that, switch windows. Alright, now to run it, if you have multiple versions of Python, like Python 2 and Python 3 installed, you like this, you're going to want to type Python 3. If you only have Python 3 installed, 3 point something, in this case 3.4, you just need to type Python. But I have multiple ones installed, so Python 3 space chat.py, and that's going to, assuming I didn't make a syntax error or something, run the program. And you see here it prints out hello world to the terminal, to the command line. So and that's like basically all the input and output we're going to do in this program is going to be like printing things out in the, and when I say print it, I just mean like make the text appear in this command line window, and it's going to read text that you type in a little while. So this is a very short program here. It's one statement is this function call to print. Usually programs have more than that, and so we're going to add a few more. All right, so and I'm going to add this one at the top because it needs to come before, well, it doesn't need to come before the print statement, but it needs to come before the thing that's going to come after it. So we're going to type from time import sleep. So what does this mean? So we're importing from a module called time, and a module is basically like the way to think of it right now is that a module is like another file like this. It's like you and when we and sleep is a function that is created in that module. Okay, so and don't worry, we'll get to what functions are, but a function is like for right now, think of it as a command or like a program to run within the program. Just think of it as a command for now, all right? Okay. So now that we've got that import statement, we're going to do sleep parentheses 2 close parentheses, and then print open parentheses, and then in quotation marks, okay, bye. One thing to mention is if you're trying this at home, is or wherever you happen to be trying it, is these statements are case sensitive. So print has to be lowercase, sleep has to be lowercase, and these within quotation marks, these this is called a string. Like it's going to print it out whatever in whatever case. Like if it's uppercase, like this O will be uppercase, the rest will be lowercase. It'll print it out as okay. And so what does this like mean that we've typed so far, right? So the way this the way it works, and like it may seem like a little basic to explain it right now, but it'll come in handy in a little while. But the way like a program works is that it reads one line and it executes that line, then it reads the next line. This is blank, so it doesn't do anything. And we can leave a blank line to just sort of keep things organized, so everything's not all running together. And that's the computer doesn't really care about blank lines. It's for humans reading things to be able to read it easier, right? Okay, so and then it reads this line and executes it, and then it reads this line and executes it, and then it reads this line and executes it. And I've got this window behind the other window again. I am very sorry. Notepad++. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm an OBS noob. OBS being the streaming software I'm using, which, yeah. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, with the window in front of the other window, reads this line, executes it, which in this case it goes and finds this module, and it goes and finds this function in the module and brings it into our, well, we call it a namespace, the local namespace, so that we can use this function within this file, the sleep function. Okay, reads this line, which doesn't have anything in it, so it goes on to the next line, reads this line, prints it out, reads this line, and it's going to sleep for 2 seconds, which means just pauses for 2 seconds. Python sleep function is in increments of seconds. You can do like 2.5, 2.3 seconds, or whatever, or 0.02 seconds, like whatever duration you would want to have your program sleep for. We're going to do it for 2 seconds just because, like, printing out one thing and then another thing. Like we want to kind of make this chat more natural, right? So this program that's going to chat with us. So okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then after it reads the sleeps for 2 seconds, then it reads this one and executes it. So we call that the flow of control. Like the flow of control passes to this statement and executes it, passes to this line, it executes, well, nothing to execute, it passes to this line, executes it, passes to this line and executes it, passes to this line and executes it, right? And that may seem basic, but it the flow of control gets a little more complicated when we talk about the if statements and loops, which we're going to talk about in a little while. So let me remember to switch windows this time. I switch windows in my screen, and they don't necessarily switch in OBS is the reason why I'm making that mistake. Sorry about that. But okay, so we're in the back in the command line window, right? And so I'm just going to type python 3 chatpy.py again to run the program again now that we've updated it. And it's going to say hello world, and it waits, and then says okay bye, and then the program exits, right? So once it gets to the last line in the program, and after it executes that, the program exits and it returns back to the command line. If you're running the program from the command line, there are other ways to run programs which you're probably actually more familiar with, like clicking on an icon or an app, tapping on an app icon. But if you're running it from the command line, after it executes each statement within the program, like executes the last statement, returns to the command line. Okay, so, and if anyone is watching and you have any questions so far, or if you don't understand something that I'm talking about, please let me know. I don't know if anyone is watching currently, but yeah, or if this is an uploaded YouTube video in the future, feel free to ask a question in the comments. So let's go back to our Notepad++ window, or whatever text editor you're using. So what else are we going to do next? This is a very linear program right now, not a very interactive conversationalist. This chatbot is. It's not even asking us any questions, right? So what if it said, hello, how are you? Okay, so we're going to add, and then it's going to ask ask for input from us. And so the way we're going to do that is answer. Okay. And actually, let me add another blank line between this, or above and below what I'm adding, just to sort of set it apart. Okay, so answer start streaming, and you'll immediately forget how to type. Believe me. Okay, equals input, and this input is a function. So we're calling a function. To call a function, you put in its name and parentheses, and any parameters to that function. So right, so that 2 in sleep was called a parameter. Notepad++ is helpfully giving us information about the name of the function we're using, but we can ignore that right now. Okay, and then like input, you can call it without giving it any parameters, but in this case we're going to give it some text to print out, like like before it reads this input, and that's like just going to put greater than sign, two greater than signs and a space in here, like to give it a prompt. Okay, and save it. Okay, so there's a couple things that I need to explain on this line, right? So answer is a variable. And what is a variable? So a variable is, think of it as a slot that you can put some kind of data in. Like, and in this case, it's giving the result of input. It's going to, so input's going to get some text that the user types in, and it does what we call returning that input, that text. And so to create a variable in Python is very simple. You just create an assignment statement. So answer equals whatever it is. We could have said, let me just cut this, and so we could have said answer equals fine, right? So an assignment statement has the variable name equals some value or some expression that creates that value. But in this case, we're going to be calling the input function. So input, when it gets that information from the user, it'll return what they typed as a string, and so since it's in this assignment statement, it's going to get assigned to the, it's going to get put in that slot, that which is the answer variable. So does that make sense? If anyone wants to talk in the chat, let me know. And it's also called variable because what we have in that slot can change. So right now it's whatever they typed, but then we could change it to equals, we could change it to bad, like, and we can refer to it later, but we'll talk about that. So the next thing we're going to learn about, and actually before I do that, let's just run this, okay? Okay, so and with one more line just to show that this is working and show visually what it does. So print you typed, okay, and it's helpfully adding, Notepad++ is helpfully adding closing quotation marks, and I'm gonna add a plus. If you want to concatenate two strings in Python, you can just put a plus between them, as long as the first one is a string. Like you can sometimes add other data types onto the end of a string, but otherwise it'll assume it's a number. So right, anyway, so you typed and answer. So it's gonna concatenate those strings, but concatenate, I mean like put them together into one string. Alright, so let's save that, and remember to switch windows because I'm a OBS wizard. Okay, and now we're going to run it again. Right, so hello, how are you? I am okay. Okay, and so now it tells us that we typed I'm okay, right? So it prints out that answer. Switching windows again, so I'm right, and it sleeps, and then it prints out okay, bye, and exits. Okay, switch windows again. Yeah, okay. So hopefully that makes sense. So now that we've tested that line, that answer input line, that it works correctly with this print statement, we're gonna actually make use of this answer, right? So what we want to do is we're gonna do something different based on what the answer is. Okay, so first we're going to type if space answer, and so this distinction is important. If there's one equal sign, it's an assignment statement. If there's two equal signs, it's a comparison. Okay, if answer double equals good, and we're going to have to, it's going to have to be in all lowercase, and then colon at the end of that line, just because that's how Python syntax works. Is your if statements before after the if clause of the if statement, you need a colon, and then enter. And so here's where Python starts to look different from other programming languages. So an if statement has a block that it executes if this condition is true. So if answer is this string, if it equals this string good, there's a block of text, or a block of code that executes, and if it's not equal to that, then it doesn't. So we're gonna usually, so if you're just using Notepad, you're going to need to manage that indentation manually. Notepad++ and other programming editors usually make things a little easier for you. So Python prefers if you use spaces for indentation, and it's supposed to be 4 spaces for each indentation level. Right now we're indented 1 level, and basically everything within the same block needs to be indented at the same indentation. So this line, if we're going to have more than 1 line in this block, well, let me just add this line so it's easier to see, right? So print, so we said, and parentheses, open quotes, and it's going to say glad to hear it. Right, so this line, so we could have more than 1 line, and I'm doing well too. I'm doing well too. Okay, so do we need? Yeah, we'll leave them both in, right? So these need to be at the same indentation level to tell Python that they're part of this this if statements, then, I'm going to call it the then block. Some languages go if condition then this block. Python, you don't actually use the word then in Python, but I'm going to call it the then block. All right. So let's save this again, and remembering to switch windows. All right. So let's run it, and assuming I did not make a mistake. Hello, how are you? Okay, so we're going to type good. Glad to hear it. I'm doing well too. Okay, bye. All right. So the program cares how we are. Isn't that nice? Well, I think so. I don't know. All right. So going back to okay, let's try this one more time though. Hello, how are you? Meh. Okay, bye. Okay, so hopefully that like hopefully that makes sense if you're um okay, just getting tangled up in my windows here. Right? So in that case, it gets to this line and the answer, so the contents of this answer variable, this answer slot, right? A variable is a slot. It does this comparison, answer equals good. And so the answer that we typed was not good, it was meh, right? So this answer equals good evaluates to false. So it's either going to evaluate to true or false, a comparison, well, array, or I should say an equals comparison will either be true or false, and so it's not equal, so it evaluates to false, so it just doesn't execute this block, right? Right, so then it moves on past this if block and does the other stuff we've seen before. Sleep for 2 seconds, then prints okay bye, and gets the end of the program, so it exits. Make sense? So yeah, so that's what I was getting at earlier with flow of control, right? So control goes to this statement, executes it, brings sleep into our local namespace so we can call the sleep function. Goes to this line, there's nothing on it. Goes to this line, prints out hello, how are you? Goes to this line, nothing on it. Goes to this line, and it so. Okay. Oh yeah. One thing to sort of mention is it executes the stuff after the in an assignment statement. Did I use the word assignment statement earlier? Variable equals expression. It evaluates the expression first, and then puts it into this slot, right? So it executes this line, then goes to this line, and it's an if statement. So if statements are control flow statements. So if answer is good, and if this condition evaluates to true, it's going to execute its then block. If it evaluates to false, it's going to go on to the next statement after that block. If we didn't want to have there are some reasons why you'd want to do this. Basically, it keeps everything regular sometimes. But if you didn't want to actually have anything in that block, you could do pass. I mean, the behavior would essentially not it wouldn't matter that we had this if statement in this if block in here if we had it like this, but so it would go here if answer equals good, and we go to this line, but it's pass. So pass basically means don't do anything, and then it continues on. So if this comparison evaluated to false, then it would just skip this line, right? So whatever we put on this line, it wouldn't matter. So hopefully that makes sense. So let me just Control Z and change it back to how we had it. So I'm doing well too. Right, okay. I hope you are all doing well out there in Twitch land. Or YouTube land if you're watching this in the future. And if you are watching this in the future, hello from the past. Alright, so what else are we going to do in this program? So we want to get this chatbot a little more like little more interesting, right? So this is where we're going to talk about functions. Okay, and okay, so I'm just thinking here, how do I want to approach this? Because I had several functions I wanted to add. Okay, well, let's start with what is a function. Let me, okay, so I do have my Notepad++ window open here. So function is basically like another word for a function is a subprogram or procedure. But a function, the way we define a function is going to be def space the name of the function. So we're going to call this greeting, and we're going to open parentheses and close parentheses there and a colon, and then we indent within this function. And remember, that tells Python, so just like with the if statement, like that tells Python that this is a block belonging to the previous statement, like a block of code. Okay, so greeting is going to have just one second. I'm okay. Just needed to check what I was planning to do here. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to have two statements in our greeting function. So first we're going to have, it's going to print hello, and then it's going to wait for our answer or our response. So we're going to do another assignment statement, answer equals. And one thing to note is within a function, like variables, like there are variables within a function just refer to, like there's a separate variable called answer within the function. It doesn't refer to the answer outside, the answer variable outside the function. Unless we do a special thing where we want to bring it in, which like if I wanted to do global answer, that means that answer is something outside the function that already exists, and we're going to assign whatever the expression part of this assignment statement is. We're going to assign that to the global answer variable, and by global I mean like within the same file. But we're not going to do that at this point in time. So answer equals input So it's going to be basically that same prompt, same call to input that we had up here. And all right. So, and we're not going to actually do anything with the result of this input right now, but I want to show you, and actually let me just cut this function and put it, okay, I'm going to put it up here. Okay. And sometimes when you copy and paste, you have to fix the indentation, like depending where you copy and paste, but looks like everything's fine right now. And so this is where it asks how are you? Okay, we're already asking hello in the function, so I'm not going to do that again. So I'm going to take it out of the print statement here. Okay, so defining the function doesn't call the function, right? So defining the function just says when you do call the greeting function, it comes to this line in and executes it and comes to this line, and then it returns back to where you call it from, right? So yeah, so this def statement for the function, we call it the definition of the function. Like some languages let you put the definition after where you're calling it, as long as it's in the same file. Don't quote me on this, but Python does require you to put it above where you're calling it. Okay, so it's gonna define this function, but it doesn't call it yet. So then it goes print how are you, right? Okay, so before we okay, let me get back to the 0 level indentation so that I'm not within the function anymore. Okay, so we're going to call this function now. Greeting. Okay. So, and we're going to save it, and it's going to do so that this other part's going to be the same, but okay. So I'm going to save it and switch back to Sigwin. There we go, and call the program again. Hello. Okay, and then so we weren't doing anything with this input here, but hi there. And then it's going to go on and say, how are you? We're still good, right? Glad to hear it. I'm doing well too. Okay, bye. And then it exits. Okay, so let me go back to Notepad++. No, down. And got another window that I'm not using, so let me get that out of the way. Sorry about that. All right, so what's happening? It starts with greeting. So when we call the function, it goes to the first line of the function, executes it, prints hello. Second line of the function, this is an assignment statement with an expression that calls the input function, and it just gets our input. Doesn't do anything with it, and then it returns from the function, which means basically it goes back to where we were when we called the function. So you can see that like input, like after input finishes, like it still has to assign the value to this answer variable. So it's got to put it in that slot. Answers the name of the slot, right? Um, so so we're talking about control flow here. So control, like it goes one line at a time unless it encounters something that makes it go in a different order, right? So we go to this line, we print hello. We go to this line, it's an assignment statement, so we do the stuff after the equals. So it executes this function. Input's a built-in function, so we don't really need to see what's in it. But what it does, it gets our input that we type, and then control returns back to this line. And so we've already evaluated the expression, so then it goes here and prints, or it assigns rather the text that we typed in to this answer, and then control passes to the next line, which in the greeting function, it's the end of the function, so it returns from the function, right? So greeting, I don't know. I think does that make sense? Yeah, we're not like assigning it. We're not taking the like the answer and assigning it to anything else. This answer in the greeting function is just a local variable. So and when we don't really care about like we're not going to do anything with the output of something, we can do like the convention is to use the name underscore. So that's like we don't really need to call it answer or anything else. We could just use underscore. Right. Okay. So what else do we want this chat program to do? We want to, well, actually, let me add something that is like common in Python programs, right? It's a convention that's that Python programs like this is how you're supposed to do it. Like the Python interpreter doesn't care, but it's like if you're working with other Python programmers, this is like kind of what they expect to see is so there's going to be an if statement, double underscore name, double underscore, so it's I just mean underscore twice, double equals, and then string, so quotation marks, double underscore main underscore, so double underscore rather, close quotation marks. And then what we're going to do is we're going to indent all this stuff. So yeah. Right, so if name is main, so double underscore main, double underscore, like in Python that's like usually called dunder main, and we don't usually say the underscores after, so we just call it dunder main, right? So if dunder name double equals dunder main, so this just means that we're calling it from like the command line, or the entry. It's not necessarily command line, but the entry point of this program. Like the entry point of the program, the module name is going to be main, like regardless of what the file name is. So we put that in an if statement, and the reason for that is let's say somebody else wanted to import this module, import this file. So they could do like from chat import greeting, right? From another file. Like we're in the chat file, chat.py file. But if you were in some other file within the same directory, you could do from chat import greeting, and they would be able to call the greeting function just like this, right? So that like can help for organizing your code. Is to like break it up into separate files, separate modules, and yeah. So it's a little more complicated than this, but basically think of a module as a file of Python code. Like there are ways to have more than one file in a module, but basically for now think of it as a module is a file, right? So yeah. So the reason why we do this, if name equals main, if dunder name dunder double equals dunder main, etc., is so that if someone calls our someone imports this module, like if they import chat as a module, it's not going to execute this block, right? Like because right. So when we're calling it from the command line, when we're calling chat.py from the command line, this file is going to be the main module. But if we're calling some other file from the command line, whatever you might call it, like say other file.py, and that imports the greeting function from the chat module, right? So like that is just to tell this module not to execute this code, right? I hope I'm making sense there. Yeah, and a lot of times there's going like we'll do if name equals main, and then we'll have def main, like a function called main. So that, I mean, theoretically you could call main from another module, but I'm going to just put pass because just so it's a valid function right now. But so yeah, a lot of times we'll do if name equals main and call the main function. Like, so that's something you'll see very often in Python code. And a lot of programming languages have this concept of a main function. So like in Java it's a method of a class, which is like another concept that we're not even going to get into in this, but it's still like a main, like a method is a function that belongs to a class essentially, and what a class is something that maybe we can get into in a future stream. C has a main function which is like actually required by the definition of the C programming language. Many other programming languages have some other equivalent to a main function. In Python, the name of the main function, like this is just a convention. Like it's something that we do that's sort of considered the right way to do it by Python programmers, but Python doesn't care if you call your main function main. It doesn't care if you have a main function, because like it's going to execute the statements in the file that you call from the command line. Like, let me switch my that you call from the command line. So we're calling python3 chat.py. So it's going to call like it's going to execute the statements in that file, whatever they are, as following the command, the flow of control, right? So like so that's why we have this guarded by the if statement. This, like I think I'm making sense there. So yeah. So we're also going to so we don't actually need a main function in this because well, we just don't. We're going to have several other functions. So I'm going to take that out. But we do need a greeting function because we're kind of breaking up the things we're doing here. And we're going to have, so I'm going to take these out and create a parting function, right? The opposite of greeting is parting. Def parting. And okay, in this case my indentation didn't copy over correctly. Okay, save that. And greeting does this other stuff. And parting. Okay. And did I want to call greeting instruction parting? Okay, I don't think we actually need this other stuff right now. What's the part of a conversation called where you're like asking how people are? Like catch up? Let's call it catch up. Catching up. Def catch under ctch underscore up. And right. All right. We're gonna take this stuff and move it into the function. So Python, where'd it go? There it is. Okay. Paste and fix my. Okay, let me make this a little wider. So, well, no, that's not working. Making this wider that way. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so it should. Don't want it quite so wide because you just want the other window to be a little visible. Okay. So catch up, and I need to fix my indentation. So yeah. And if there's a blank line, it doesn't matter if there's like it doesn't like the spaces or tabs on that blank line don't have to be at the same indentation level. Just the actual lines with text on them. Okay, so the catch up is, so we're going to call greeting, we're going to call catch up, and we're going to call parting. So the program is catching up with us. So another thing I wanted to mention, so this is also like, so what for naming functions and naming variables in Python, the convention is all lowercase, and words are separated by underscores. Now this convention is violated sometimes, and even by standard library modules, especially ones that that are going to be called really often. So it makes it more succinct. But yeah, separating by underscores, and otherwise all lowercase, and that's called snake case, because Python is a snake, right? It would be like correct. I mean, as long as when we call it, we use the same thing. It's case sensitive, isn't, and everything. Remember, but we could do it like this. This is called camel case, like where the words are, or where like the first word's lowercase and subsequent words are like the initial capitalized, catch up with you, etc. So that's called camel case because like that's like the convention for how you do it in Perl, different programming language. But yeah, catch up. And if we have the initial one uppercase, it's called Pascal case. Sometimes people call that camel case too, but catch up. It's called camel case just because like it's like a hump, right? And I think that might be why like Perl, like it's got a tutorial book called the Camel Book. Anyway, so this is how we're going to do it: is catch underscore up, and got the same, yeah. So it's case sensitive, as I mentioned, right? So we're going to do the greeting, we're going to do the catch up, we're going to do the parting, and let me just run that. And assuming I didn't make a mistake, okay, switching to my Sigma window. Cool. Running 3 chat.py. Hello. Okay, we're gonna say hi. Hi. How are you? I'm okay. Okay, and remember it. I was gonna say okay, bye. Like, because it has to be like it only checks if you said good. It doesn't check if you said I'm okay. A more advanced chatbot might compare like a lot of different ways of saying the same thing, you know, and like it's case sensitive. So if we were to type good in all caps, it also wouldn't recognize that. Yeah, but just to verify that everything's still working, we'll run it again. Hello, hi there. How are you? So good. I'm doing well too. Glad to hear it. Okay, bye. All right. So yeah, everything's still working. That is good. Let me show you what happens when things are not working, because that's something that happens a lot in programming. A lot of times you make some kind of syntax error or you get something wrong. So let me just delete one of these parentheses. Sometimes like a programming editor will like give a little like red squigglies or something because it like there's like the editor knows knows the syntax of the language. But I just want to show you like error messages because I don't think we've actually like somewhat miraculously haven't gotten any so far this stream. So let me run that again with that missing parentheses. Okay, so what's happening here? File chat.py line 24 parting, and it's got a little caret pointing to this like the end of the stream. Syntax error, invalid syntax. Okay, so let's go back to this Notepad++. Okay, line 24, parting. Okay, and so that's not even the line where we made the mistake, right? And yeah, so the Python interpreter, at least this version of the Python interpreter, like isn't smart enough to know that this line is where we made the mistake. It's yeah, so it's going to read greeting. It's going to see that open parentheses, and it's going to think that this is a is something we're passing to the function. Like we could do, like if greeting were taking parameters, we could do greeting variable 1, variable 2, right? So that's kind of the reason why functions have parentheses, function calls have parentheses, because a lot of times they take parameters. just like input takes this string parameter, right? Um, so since we didn't have anything like didn't close this on this line, like so the parameters to a function, and that's something that you can like I also should mention, like you don't have to put all the parameters on the same line, like, but it's going to take everything within the parentheses and separated by commas as being part of the parameters that are passed to this function. And I don't think I'm gonna talk much about parameters in this stream. I sort of had like a list, well, not so much a list. I kind of wrote a lot of this program ahead of time just so I wouldn't like be like, what am I gonna write? And trying to figure it out on stream. But yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. So it's gonna think that this is like a parameter, but if this is a parameter, then this like it's gonna find parting and like see that that is not in the format that parameters need to be in. Anyway, so with syntax errors, a lot of times, like why is it pointing to this? Why is this the caret pointing to this particular line? No, this goes up. Okay, just switching my windows here. So this caret in the syntax error, it's not even like it's pointing to parting, and like if we could spend time figuring out exactly why it's making that particular error, but the main thing is like if you get a syntax error, it's like something usually on or before the line where it's pointing to. So you just go and find out like where you made a mistake. And yeah, so we fixed that. So hopefully, okay, so I'm going to switch back to the command line window, and okay, so it's going to do hello, hi, how are you, okay, okay, bye, it says. Another thing I just want to show you, like, is that you probably are going to run into if you're using Python, using any language really, but it'll be a different. Is if you get the name of something wrong, greeting with 2 G's, right? And I was in the wrong window. Speaking of getting things wrong, right? So I add another G to this name, the name of this function call, whereas the actual function has 1 G at the end. So if I switch, okay, track back, most recent call last, name error, the name greeting with 2 G's is not defined. So that's something that you might see frequently. Nothing to worry about. It's just like just something to fix. Like that's part of programming. You get these errors. You made a mistake and you figure out where you made it and you fix it. Sometimes you could search for, like, if I could copy this into Google and search name error greeting is not defined in Google, and like a lot of times it'll show up, you'll find a Stack Overflow page or something where someone was getting this error and they asked about it and people answered what the problem was. But I mean, and you might sometimes see like errors like this that are caused by libraries you call that are doing something wrong, that are making like either some mistake in the library or like you gave it something it wasn't expecting. you gave it a parameter that it wasn't expecting, for example. And so like, and in Python, so it does there's only one like file chatpy, and this is the line that it had a problem with, not being able to find the name greeting, the name of the function. There a lot of times, like if you're calling a function from another function, then, or like more than one like nested function calls, you're going to see more than one of these, and it should be the last one will be the one usually is where the mistake was. Yeah, so okay, let me go back to Notepad++ and fix our little error and make sure everything works. Save it and go back here to the command line window. Okay, so it looks like it got past there before. Hello, hi, how are you? Good, glad to hear it. I am doing well too. Okay, bye. All right. So so let me go back to the Notepad window and show you, well, one more thing about what we've got in there so far that I think would be good to see. Yeah, so yeah, we can call functions from other functions. And input might call other functions. We're calling input in this one, enter equals input, yeah. So if I were to call, catchup, and catchup called parting, and parting called greeting, like that's a completely normal thing, and it would just be like from wherever catchup was called, it would call, like it would get to the next function call and go, control would go there and it would execute that, and like when you call it greeting, it would go to greeting and execute that and return back to parting, and then return back to catchup, and then return back to where catchup was called. Hopefully that's making sense. Like basically it's kind of like a stack. It like pushes the next function up onto the stack and like executes it, and then when it's done it pops it off to the stack and goes back to where it was before. Nobody's chatting right now, so I don't know if I'm like speaking gibberish, but hopefully that all makes sense. And let's see, streaming for an hour and 20 right now. And I think there's one main other concept that we're going to cover, and that is loops. So how are we going to do this? Okay, so after we catch up in our conversation, but before we part and say goodbye in the conversation, so we're going to add another function call. We're going to call this conversation, like the actual like conversing part of the conversation. All right, and so of course we didn't define this function yet, so we're going to add the definition for it. Def conversation, and parentheses, colon, an indent. All right. So okay, so we're going to start with like a pretty rudimentary conversation. Like kind of a bored computer, right? So within this function, we're going to have a loop. And what is a loop? Basically, a loop is a block of statements that is going to be executed over and over. And how many times is it going to get executed? That depends on the loop. So this is going to be while. We're going to have a variable called talking, and we're going to do an assignment statement. Talking equals true. True and false in Python. The initial letter is capitalized. So it's going to be either the word true or the word false. And these are like special built-in values. So talking equals true. So while talking, okay, the variable is lowercase. Talking, colon, and then indent again. And so then within this loop, like the body of the loop is indented, right? So we're going to it's going to say we're going to put an if statement in this loop. Actually, before I do that, it's going to get a response. Like this is answer. Answer here is a local variable, right? So it's not the same variable as the other things we've called answer in this program. Answer equals input. We're going to do another prompt here. And then it's going to just say So the program is not really listening to us. Not a very engaged chatbot right now. So what's this going to do? It's going to come when we call this conversation function, which we're doing in the main block here. It's gonna set talking its local variable talking to true. Then it's going to start the loop. And the first thing in the loop is it tests that the value of that variable, which we're not changing that value anywhere in the loop. So it's going to just loop that infinitely. It's going to execute this statement, go back to the test talking. So while talking is true, and talking is going to remain true, so it would be forever. So we call that an infinite loop, and generally you want to avoid that if there's no way to break out of it, because then the program will just run forever. I mean, there's like usually if you want to break out of it in a program, run from the command line. You can type Control-C and it'll exit out of it. But a lot of times you can have an infinite loop that you didn't mean to. And we don't want this conversation to go on forever. So after it does that, we're going to do if answer. Let's see. If answer double equals, remember if it's double equals, it's testing the value, and if it's single equals, it's an assignment. And that's another thing that's like easy to mix up a lot of times. So maybe like if you're having problems, maybe check those in your program. So if answer equals by, then it's going to set this variable talking equals false. Right? So now, okay, let me just run this, and assuming I didn't make a syntax error or something, okay, and switching the windows, so I'm not hiding the thing from you again. Okay, Python3 chat.py. Hello. Hi there. How are you? Okay. Can't complain. Doesn't really matter what I type. Okay, so it didn't say anything before that, and that's just because of how we wrote that loop. All right, so what else do we want to say? So what's up with you? It says it's not really listening to us. Are you listening? Okay. Okay, it's not really listening. Bye then. Uh-oh. Okay, so that I think, let me go back to the Notepad++ window. Okay, so that should sort of illustrate how loops works, right? So it starts off with we set talking is true, and that's going to be our condition for the loop. So it starts with it true and loops while that condition is true. So while talking, and this doesn't have to be the name of a variable. It could be an expression. It could be while, like if it's a number, like while responses, and we would have to create this variable responses less than 10 or something like that. Like Python has, the basic arithmetic, less than, greater than, or whatever. So it can be some expression. It could be it could be the result of some function call. So while some function that we would have to define somewhere else, or it would have to have been defined by some other module. But it would take the result of this function, and if it's true, then it goes through the loop again and then calls it again. And if it's false the next time, if it returns false the next time, then it would exit the loop. Right? So, but what we're doing while talking, and so while talking, so talking's true the first time, so it goes through this loop, and so what's the first thing it does? It puts out a prompt. That's why it didn't say anything, like why, so why it just did this. It gave us another prompt after the first time it entered the loop, right. So greeting it printed something out, then it had an input statement, and then it didn't do anything else. And then the conversation function had an input statement, and then it printed something out, right? And it did another input statement, so we gave it a "Are you listening?" and then it has another print statement within the loop, right? And then we tell it bye, and that's it checks the answer. It checks the result of it checks what we give it against this string, right? So if answer equals bye, so this expression evaluates to true if what we typed is the word bye, all lowercase, right? So when that is the case, when we do tell it bye, it's going to set talking to false, but it's still going to, after this this if statement, it's still going to print out its non-committal, whatever, response, and it's going to go back to the loop again. But then, now that we've told it bye, and we set talking to false, so it's going to test that variable and it's false, so it's going to not execute that loop again. So it's going to go to the next statement after the loop, which that was the last statement in the function, so it exits the function, right? So then conversation, the function which we called here, like it's back up to where we called it from. So then parting is going to be called, and it's going to tell us okay, bye, right? So hopefully I'm making sense. Nobody's asked any questions in the chat. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. We're gonna do one more thing, just to give this, like, our conversationalist chatbot a little more I don't know, realism-ish. Like this isn't gonna pass any Turing tests, which is like it's where you try and like fool someone into thinking you can't tell if it's a computer or a human that you're chatting with. So this bot's not going to pass any Turing tests today. It's just a simple demonstration, but we're going to add some more more believable responses. I mean, I guess it's believable that it doesn't care about us and it's just going to say a bunch. But maybe it's a more friendly chatbot. So we're going to add some more responses that so within this conversation function, okay, I'm going to give it a responses. Yeah, I'm going to add a variable called responses, and this is going to be a list that we're going to assign. So a list in Python, what is a list? Basically, I mean, you're familiar with lists from just your life, right? A list is like it's a group of things, right, that are sort of in order. Like the order may or may not matter, but like it does have an order, right? So it's a list. It's just a list of things, right? So in Python, that is a type of data structure, is like it's called a list. So, and this is going to be a list of strings. And so what are some of the things that, and it's just a list of the possible responses that this program can have, and we're going to make use of that. And the syntax in Python, is you open square bracket, close square bracket, and so the items in the list, like you can have 0 items, like in this case, like we currently do. We can have 1 item, which is going to be like, it could be a string, it could be, you can put variables into the list, like but it's going to be a list of strings. So they could be 1 item. If there's more than 1 items, they have to be separated by commas. So right, item 1, item 2, 3, etc. Right, they have to be separated by commas, and that's kind of going off the screen. So let me just, so you can see it, right? Separated by commas. You can have an extra comma afterwards, which just like can help keep things regular if you're like pasting additional things into a list. Yeah, so, and another thing to note is that like within the list, it doesn't care about indentation until after the closing bracket, right? So we're going to put this stuff on separate lines. So the different responses that we're going to have in this list are, that's interesting. Okay. And add a comma after the string, close quotation mark. Tell me more. Wait, what? Okay, I think I get it. And so what you're saying is it's complicated. Question mark. Okay, and that's a little wide for the window, but yeah, I'm using a pretty small window so that in like Twitch or whatever you're watching on, it'll be big enough that, because I don't know what size screen you're going to be watching on. You might be watching on a huge screen, in which case all this text is going to be huge. But if you're watching on a laptop or a phone, I don't know if it'll be like how well it's going to show up on a phone, but you know, hopefully everything is going to show up fine. And yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we've got this list of responses. A list is within square brackets. We're going to have commas between them, and it doesn't care if we put them on different lines as long as they're between these square brackets. And in this case, like, we could have a list of numbers, but this is a list of strings. String basically means text in programming. Like it's an item of text. So yeah, and so each one of these is going to be a string enclosed with quotation marks. Yeah, so we have these responses. So what are we going to do with them, right? And we're also going to need something to keep track of what response number, and we're just going to call that R. A lot of times, so we're going to start it at 0. So a lot of times it's not a good idea to have really short variable names, because you don't like it doesn't give a lot of information. Like when you just have a one-letter variable name. But sometimes it's really obvious what it is, and you don't want to do a lot of typing if you're going to use this variable over and over within your code. And sometimes it's very obvious from the context what this variable refers to. So yeah, as a rule, generally kind of avoid single letter variable names. But in this case, well, we're using the same letter as responses, so it's, you know, kind of should be clear that it's referring to what number of response we're using. We could call this response number num, response number, response num. But I'm just going to use R because, well, for one thing, I've got a really small window here, and saves typing, and it can make it easier to read when they're shorter, as long as it's clear what this variable means. And one way to make that clear could be to add a comment. Comments is something that I haven't introduced at all in this tutorial so far. Comments, like to add a comment, it's just the # or hash, whatever you call this in your neck of the woods, and some text. And so we're going to say this R equals response number. Well, current response number. Current, yeah. Comment, like this # means ignore everything after it on the line. So yeah. or the Python interpreter ignores everything after it, which is convenient because yourself or other programmers who are reading your code can look at these comments and see um, like your helpful information that you're putting in for um, for them to read, and it'll help them understand, or help you understand after you're coming back to this code later on, uh, what this line refers to. Or you can have a comment on its own line. Comment on its own line. And one thing that comments can be used for is if you have a block of code that you want to see what the program would do if you took out that, and let me see, that block of code, and I don't remember the shortcut in Notepad++, so I'm just gonna manually add these, right. Oop. And you see, in since I'm using a programming editor, it's changing the color of this because Notepad++ recognizes that these are comments from the syntax. If I was using Notepad or something, it wouldn't recognize. Well, Notepad doesn't have any syntax highlighting anyway because it just knows about plain text. But yeah, but we don't actually want to remove. I just wanted to show you, if you want to see what your program would be like without a particular block, you don't have to delete it. You can just add these you can comment out the lines, it's called. Alright, so let me take these out. And I probably messed up the indentation, right? Didn't I? Okay, I'll just check. So that's one issue with commenting things out, and this is on, there we go. So yeah, you have to kind of, when you uncomment it, make sure you didn't mess up the indentation. And some programming editors might help you with that, automatically sort of put things, or at least try to put things on the indentation level that they're supposed to be on. Hold on one second. I need a sip of water. All right. So we have this R variable to keep track of which response we're currently, and we're not going to randomly choose. That is something we'll talk about maybe in a future stream if anybody's interested. But so we're gonna, let's see. So in this while loop, and there is another kind of loop in Python. It's called a for loop, which if we wanted to do something once for every element in an array, or in a list rather, then that would be a different kind of loop to use. And maybe I'll talk about that a little later. So, and actually within this conversation, we're going to start by, before we enter this loop, right? We're going to have it ask print, what's on your mind? Okay. So that, like, remember we had that problem earlier where, like, it didn't have a response before it started asking us for input. So yeah. So then it's going to excuse me 1 second, just referring to the, like, okay, so if answer equals by, it's going to tell it, it's going to exit the it's going to exit this conversation function, or it's going to exit the loop, and then but otherwise, so we're going to take out this because we don't want it to be a disinterested conversation partner. So we're going to introduce another concept of the else block. So the else goes with if, right? So if this expression evaluates to true, it's going to execute this then block, and if it doesn't if it evaluates to false, it's going to execute the else block, right? So assuming we haven't told it by, it's going to take one of these responses. So print responses open bracket r, and then it's going to, or no, I'm going to take r equals r plus 1. So when the first time we come into the loop, r is going to be 0, and so we're going to increment it. We're going to add 1 to it. Increment just means add 1 to it. So the first time it's going to be 0, the next time it's going to be 1. So responses, so to get an item in a list, this is how you do it. The list name, the variable name that refers to the list, and then open bracket some expression, which in this case we're just going to use the variable r. So responses sub 0 is going to be the first item in the list. So that's like another thing to mention about Python. The lists like are 0 based. Like, so the first item is 0, second item is 1, and so forth. So if there are, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items in the list, the last item in the list is going to be number 4. So yeah, but so it's going to be, take the current item in the list, responses are, and it's going to print that out. And then it's going to increment r so that the next time through the list, unless somebody says by, it's going to take the next item in the response. But what happens when r is greater than the number of items, or when it's equal or greater than the number of items in the list? Well, I'll show you what happens in a minute. But right now, that's that's enough, I think, to get. Let's try running the program again. Rather, like it's enough changes that we should like run it and see what happens. Hello, hi there. How are you? We'll say good. I'm doing well too. What's on your mind? Uh, what is on our mind? Programming. That's interesting. See, more. It's a more interested chatbot. Um, I think so. Tell me more. Well, you type in a file and the computer does what you say. Okay, so it's wrapping my text here because it's a narrow window. Okay. Wait, what? Yeah. I can tell computers what to do. Okay, I think I get it. Pretty fun. You should try it. So what you're saying is it's complicated. No, not really. Okay. And so this is what happens when we got an error message. This is what happens when you try to access something beyond the end of the list. The last item was item 4. It's it's a 5-item list, so 0 to 4. So this would be responses 5 rather. So, and it's going to say index error, list out of range. And the specific text of these error messages might change from version, like in a future Python version, might not be exactly the same error. Hopefully you can't hear that ambulance running by. But so let's, okay, switching windows here. All right. So how can we avoid going back? Like, we don't need this chatbot to be too complicated, but so we're going to do r equals r %. Hold on. %, shift 5, r mod len of responses. Okay, and len is a built-in Python function that just gets the length of a list or some other thing similar. Like there are other things you can get the length of, but a lot of times it's going to be a list. So len of responses is going to give us 5, and the reason we don't just put in 5, like a lot of that's called hard coding. Like if we added another thing to this list, then this would or took one out of it, then this would still work, right? So length, len stands for length, by the way. Gets the length of the list, and %, when we use it like that, like a number, like this variable refers to a number, or it contains a number rather. % means mod, which sort of means the remainder. Like so if r divided by let me see how to explain this. So it's the remainder of division. So if we divide by r by, like if r is 4 and we divide it by 2, that's 2, right? But if we divide it by 5, I'm explaining that wrong. And actually, let me just sort of show you in the command line, right? And so I'm going to type in Python 3, right? So I'm going to do 1 mod 3. Okay, so 1 is less than 3. 2 mod 3 is 2. Like so, 3 mod 3 is going to be 0. 4 mod 3 is going to be 1. 5 mod 3 is going to be 2. And 6 mod 3 is going to be 0 again. So it's just going to keep going. 0, 1, 2, 0, 1. So this is like helpful if we want to keep, like, if we've got something we just want to keep like going over the same sequence of numbers again. So like the remainder, if we were dividing 1 by 3, would be 1, right? And if it was dividing 2 by 3, the remainder would be 2. And the remainder, if we were dividing 5 by 3, like 3 goes into 5 once with a remainder of 2. So yeah. And we call that mod because it's modular arithmetic, and that's a math thing. Like basically everything is like goes over the same sequence of values rather than keeping increasing, I guess. But basically it means the remainder. Okay. And yeah, so we're using mod to keep R within a specific set of values. And so going back to my Notepad++ window, right? So that's why we're doing R mod length of responses. So when R becomes 5, which is 1 more than the last item in the list, the remainder of R divided by 5 is going to be 0. So then R is going to become 0, which means the next time through the list we get, or the next time through the loop rather, we get the first item in the list again, because it's R0 and the lists are 0 base. So this is item 0. So hopefully that makes sense. So now that we have fixed that, let me switch windows again, get back to the command line window. Okay, and okay, so I went into like the Python, like if you just type Python 3 or Python, if you only have one version of Python installed, that's one way to just test out simple statements, like test out the syntax. And to get out of it, you do quit and open parentheses, closes parentheses. Like you call the quit function. So let's call our program again. So hello, hi, how are you? We're not even gonna tell it good. So okay, what's on your mind? Stuff. That's interesting. It really is. Tell me more. Well, stuff is another word for things. Wait, what? Yep. They're synonyms. Okay, I think I get it. That's good. I knew you would. Wait, so what you're saying is it's complicated. No, not really complicated. That's interesting. Yep. Tell me more. I don't want to. So you can see like it's repeating, like it's already that's interesting. It went back to the first statement in the loop, or the first response in the loop, or in the list rather. Sorry. Wait, what? Okay, and so now we're just going to tell it bye, and it says okay bye and exits. So Sigwin, back to Notepad++. So hopefully that made sense. Nobody's in the chat is telling me it doesn't make sense, and that might be because nobody's currently watching. But I hope this is all making sense to you. And yeah, so we went through this loop, and we have R that gets incremented each time through the loop, except when we're except if answer is bye, which means we're exiting. So it starts with item 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we do R equals R mod the length of responses, so which is 5. So it's going to go again 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So hopefully, like, you can kind of see how this works. And if you do have any questions, let me know. But I think that's kind of all the major concepts. There's one other thing in here. So these statements, like, we got to type R twice in these, like these assignment statements. So Python has a little, like, a convenience thing to do, like, if so R equals R plus 1, in order so we don't have to type all that out. We can just do R plus equal 1, and that just means the same thing, R equals R plus 1. We can increase by whatever other value that's, and the same thing with mod. R mod equals the mod equals len responses. Does that work? I'm pretty sure it works. This is one way. I mean, let's make sure that does work. So going back to my command prompt window. Hello, hi, how are you? Okay, what's on your mind? Stuff. That's interesting. Not really. Tell me more. No. Wait, what? Yeah, not telling you. Okay, I think you get it. No, you don't. So you're saying it's complicated. Not really. That's okay. So it did work. Like, sometimes, like, there's a lot of syntax to remember, and sometimes the best way to just try it out and see if it works the way you think it's supposed to. Let me switch back the window here to Notepad++. So yeah, I mean, and I don't really like this, like plus equals 1. That's pretty simple, but you don't see mod equals all that often. So, like, I'm just gonna keep it like mod R equals R mod R mod. It's dark here. I can't see my keyboard. And okay, so yeah, I think I like it better this way, even though they mean the same thing. Like I didn't even remember if that would work. So sometimes it's better to, like, not not keep things overly clever, just so like it's easier to understand for yourself in the future or other people coming back to it. But plus equals, that's a fairly common thing to do. Minus equals, I mean, it's kind of a judgment call whether you want to use a particular type of statement that means the same as another. Yeah. Anyway, I hope this all made sense and some people will get something out of it. This is kind of laying the groundwork. I haven't done this for this kind of tutorial before. Just like trying to assume no programming knowledge, and I don't know. Maybe this like was confusing for anybody watching. Maybe not. Hopefully you're getting something out of it. But it's laying the groundwork, hopefully, for something I want to talk about in a future stream within the next week or so. I'm not sure exactly when, which is like how to go about writing these kinds of programs. Like I wasn't coming up with this stuff like on the spot. I did like write like most program basically like this beforehand, so I wasn't like coming up with it all on the spot, and like having to think of what to write at the same time as streaming. But if we did want to write a new program, how would we go about doing that? And like there's sort of a clue from like how we structure this is you basically want to break down the problem into, like, you take the problem, build a chatbot, for example, and break it down into smaller problems. So we've got smaller problems here, like how does the chatbot greet us? We want the chatbot to do a little catch up, and then we want to sort of have a conversation, and then we want to part. So often those correspond to functions. Those parts of the problem that we break it down into, they correspond to functions, or maybe they correspond to classes, which is a thing we can talk about in a future stream. Or they may not, but a lot of or they may just correspond to blocks within a function, or within a module, like the. But that's something we'll talk about in a future stream. But hopefully this will give you some background into, like, if you are reading code, that you sort of can start to understand what's going on in there, and maybe it's like maybe you can play around with these concepts, like functions, assignments, printing stuff out, getting input, and doing stuff based on the input. So yeah, I hope you found this helpful, and until next time, so long, fellow aliens.